You were playing love. I was just waiting for your bluff.
The credit card statement showed $3,000 charged to the Bellagio in one weekend. Rachel claimed she was visiting her sick aunt in Portland. I stared at the paper in my hands, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach tighten like a fist. My wife of 14 years had just lied to my face about spending our daughter's college fund in Vegas. Again. "Dad, Mom's acting weird," Molly said from the kitchen doorway, her 11-year-old face scrunched with worry. "She keeps whispering on the phone and laughing at nothing." Smart kid. Gets it from me, not her mother. Define weird, sweetheart. I folded the statement and shoved it in my desk drawer, right next to the other 3 I'd been collecting. Insurance adjusters notice patterns. It's what we do. She told Mrs. Patterson she was going to a work conference, but she told you it was Aunt Linda. And yesterday she said Vegas was for losers. But now she has all these poker books. Molly held up a dog-eared copy of Texas Hold'em for Dummies like evidence in court. My stomach dropped to my shoes. "Where'd you find that?" "Mom's purse. She left it open when she went to shower." I took the book, flipped through pages marked with Rachel's handwriting, notes about betting strategies, circled paragraphs about reading tells, phone numbers scribbled in margins. One caught my eye. Travis, call about weekend plans. Travis, never heard that name before. "Go finish your homework," I told Molly. "I need to make some calls." The next morning, Rachel announced another work trip. Same story, same bright smile that didn't reach her eyes, same kiss on my cheek that felt like a performance. She packed her lucky red dress, the one she wore to our wedding, and drove away in her Honda like she was heading to a funeral instead of Portland. I called in sick to work and followed her. The Massachusetts Turnpike west, not north toward Portland, then Route 84 through Connecticut, then straight south toward JFK Airport. I watched her park in long-term parking and drag her suitcase toward the terminal. My phone buzzed with a text. "Landed safely in Portland. Aunt Linda says hi." She was boarding a Southwest flight to Las Vegas. I sat in that parking garage for 2 hours, staring at her empty parking space, feeling like the biggest fool in New England. 14 years of marriage, and I didn't even know my own wife anymore. The woman who used to cry during Hallmark commercials was now lying with the ease of a career politician. But I'm good at my job for a reason. Insurance fraud teaches you patience. It teaches you to document everything. Most importantly, it teaches you that people always leave trails. I drove home and started following hers. Rachel's laptop password was still Molly, 2010, the year our daughter was born. Her email revealed 3 months of correspondence with someone named Travis Kellerman. The early messages were innocent enough. Comments on poker strategy forums, tips about Vegas casinos, but they escalated fast. "Can't wait to see you again this weekend. Last time was incredible. My husband doesn't understand me like you do. I've been thinking about what you said about Molly. She'd love Vegas." That last one made my hands shake. I scrolled through months of messages, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. Travis owned a small-time poker room in a Vegas strip mall. Divorced, 2 kids he never saw, gambling debts that would make a loan shark nervous. Exactly the kind of loser who'd charm a bored suburban housewife. But the worst part wasn't the affair. It was the financial records. Rachel had opened 3 credit cards I didn't know about. Cash advances totaling $18,000, all spent in Vegas, all hidden from me with the precision of someone planning an exit strategy. She came home Sunday night with a tan and a new attitude. Designer purse, expensive jewelry, and a story about Aunt Linda's miraculous recovery. "How's Linda feeling?" I asked over dinner, watching Rachel pick at her food. "Much better. Color's back in her cheeks." "That's great. Maybe we should visit her soon. As a family." Rachel's fork clattered against her plate. "She's still fragile. Doesn't want visitors." Molly looked between us, sensing the tension. Kids always know when parents are fighting, even when the words stay polite. "Can I be excused?" Molly asked. "Sure, honey. Finish your math homework." After Molly left, I leaned back in my chair and studied my wife. New highlights in her hair, professional manicure, clothes I'd never seen before. She looked like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. "You look different," I said. "Different how?" "Confident, like you know something I don't." Rachel's smile flickered. "I've been reading self-help books. Aunt Linda recommended them." "What kind of books?" "Just personal growth stuff. Finding yourself, taking risks, not settling for mediocrity." Mediocrity? I let the word hang in the air. Is that what we are now? "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean?" She stood up and started clearing dishes with jerky, aggressive movements. I meant I'm tired of the same routine every day. Work, dinner, TV, bed, rinse and repeat until we die. Some people call that stability. Some people call it a prison. I watched her scrape food into the garbage with more force than necessary. This wasn't the woman I married. That woman valued security, family traditions, quiet evenings at home. This woman was a stranger wearing Rachel's face. We should talk about money, I said. She froze. What about money? Credit cards, for starters. Seems like we're spending more than usual. Everything's fine. Define fine. Neil, you don't need to worry about every penny. I'm handling it. Handling what exactly? She turned around, and for a split second I saw panic in her eyes. Then the mask slipped back into place. Nothing. God, you're so paranoid. Not everything is an insurance investigation. But my instincts were screaming that everything was exactly that. That night, I lay in bed listening to Rachel's breathing, waiting for her to fall asleep. When her breath turned deep and steady, I slipped out to her purse. Inside, I found receipts from places that didn't exist in Portland. Casino comp tickets, restaurant charges from Caesar's Palace, parking stubs from McCarran Airport, and tucked behind her driver's license, a cocktail napkin with a phone number, and Travis, can't wait for next weekend, written in her handwriting. I took pictures of everything with my phone, then put it all back exactly where I found it. The next morning, Rachel announced she needed to visit Aunt Linda again. Already? You just got back? She had a setback. I'm the only family she has. Maybe I should come with you. Moral support. No. The word came out sharp enough to cut glass. Rachel softened her tone. I mean, someone needs to stay with Molly. And you hate hospitals. I don't hate hospitals. I hate being lied to. When are you leaving? Thursday morning? Back Sunday night? Same pattern, same timeline, same BS story. I called Dave Martinez, my old college roommate who worked casino security in Atlantic City. If anyone knew the Vegas gambling scene, it was Dave. Travis Kellerman, Dave said over the phone. Yeah, I know that name. Runs a backroom operation called Lucky 7, low-stakes stuff. But he's got connections to bigger games. Why? My wife might be involved with him. Involved how? Every way that matters. Dave whistled low. Neil, these guys aren't playing around. They're not violent, but they're smart. They target lonely women with money, make them feel special, then drain them dry. Classic romance scam with a gambling twist. How do I stop it? You don't. You document it, get evidence, and let the law handle it. What if I don't want to wait for the law? Then you're talking about something I can't help you with. But Dave was wrong. I didn't need his help. I just needed to be smarter than everyone else in the room. Thursday morning, Rachel left for her fake trip to Portland. This time, I was ready. I'd called in vacation days at work and arranged for Molly to stay with my sister. I'd booked a red-eye flight to Vegas and reserved a rental car. Most importantly, I'd withdrawn $5,000 from our emergency fund, money Rachel didn't know existed. If my wife wanted to gamble, I'd show her how the game really worked. Las Vegas at 6 a.m. is a different animal than Vegas at midnight. The city looks tired, hungover, like a party that went on too long. Neon signs flicker against gray sky, and the streets smell like stale cigarettes and broken dreams. I checked into a motel 6 blocks from the Strip and started hunting. Lucky 7 Poker Room was exactly what I expected. A strip mall operation sandwiched between a pawn shop and a massage parlor. The kind of place that attracted desperate people with terrible judgment. I parked across the street and waited. Rachel's Honda pulled up at 2 in the afternoon. She climbed out wearing the red dress and a confidence I hadn't seen in years. A man met her at the door. Tall, thin, silver hair, expensive watch. He kissed her like they'd been together for months. Travis Kellerman, the man stealing my wife and my money. I watched them disappear inside, then called Dave. I need information on Lucky 7 Poker Room. Everything you can find. Neil, what are you planning? Research. Bees, you're planning something stupid. Probably, but I'm planning it smart. Dave sighed. Give me an hour. While I waited, I drove around Vegas, getting familiar with the geography. Travis lived in a crappy apartment complex near the airport. Lucky 7 stayed open until 4 a.m. The nearest police station was 12 minutes away. Details matter in insurance investigations. They matter more in revenge. Dave called back with intel that made my anger spike. Lucky 7 is a front, he said. Kellerman runs high-stakes private games for tourists. House take is 15%, which is highway robbery. He targets married women specifically. Easier marks, more to lose if their husbands find out. How many women? At least 6 in the last year. Same pattern every time. Romance, flattery, private games with guaranteed wins at first, then bigger losses when they're hooked. By the time they realize they're being played, they're in too deep to quit. What happened to the others? Divorces, mostly. 2 bankruptcies. 1 woman lost her house. I closed my eyes and felt rage settle in my chest like molten steel. Rachel wasn't his first victim. She was just the latest in a long line of broken families. There's more, Dave said. Kellerman's got debts, serious ones. Word is he owes the wrong people 6 figures and needs a big score soon. Let me guess, my wife's the big score. Probably. Neil, you need to be careful. Desperate men do stupid things. I hung up and stared at Lucky Seven's front door, watching Travis's operation through new eyes. This wasn't romance. It was business. Cold, calculating, and completely ruthless, just like my revenge was going to be. I spent the afternoon gathering intelligence. Travis drove a leased BMW, ate lunch at the same diner every day, and had the personal security awareness of a goldfish. He lived alone, had no friends, and his only social interaction was work-related. Perfect target. That evening, I followed Rachel and Travis to dinner at an expensive steakhouse. They held hands across the table, whispering like teenagers, completely oblivious to my presence 3 tables away. I took pictures with my phone, documenting everything. Evidence matters, even in personal vendettas. After dinner, they drove to his apartment. I parked down the street and waited. The lights in his bedroom window stayed on for 3 hours. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Aunt Linda doing better. Might stay an extra day. Love you. I texted back. Love you too. Give Linda my best. Then I drove to Travis's BMW and slashed all 4 tires. Small revenge, but satisfying. The next morning, I watched Travis discover his vandalized car from across the street. He stood in the parking lot screaming at nobody, kicking the flat tires like they'd personally insulted him. Then he called Rachel. I couldn't hear the conversation, but his body language told the story. Frantic gestures, pacing, pointing at his car like it was evidence of some vast conspiracy. Rachel emerged from his apartment looking confused and worried. They called a tow truck and spent 2 hours waiting. I used the time to break into his apartment. Travis Kellerman lived like the loser he was. Empty beer bottles, dirty dishes, unpaid bills scattered across a coffee table that had seen better decades. But his bedroom told a different story. Professional poker setup. Multiple laptops running card-counting software. Filing cabinets full of financial records on dozens of women, including my wife. Rachel's file was 3 inches thick. Bank account numbers, credit card information, social security number, employment records, even photos of our house and Molly's school. He'd been planning this for months. I photographed everything, then planted a few surprises of my own. A letter from the IRS about back taxes he didn't owe. Fake overdue notices from casino credit departments. Nothing illegal, just enough confusion to make his life complicated. Then I went back to my motel and planned phase 2. Saturday night, Lucky 7 was packed. I paid the $20 entry fee and bought into a low-stakes Texas Hold'em game, keeping my baseball cap low and my mouth shut. Rachel was at a corner table playing 5-card stud with 3 other women and 2 men who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She'd already lost big. I could tell from her posture, the desperate way she checked her cards, the growing pile of chips in front of the dealer. Travis worked the room like a politician, charming the players, keeping drinks flowing, making sure everyone felt special while he systematically emptied their wallets. I played conservative poker for 2 hours, winning small pots, building a modest stack. Then I made my move. Mind if I join? I asked Travis during a break between games. He looked me up and down. Middle-aged tourist, cheap clothes, nervous energy. Easy mark. Always room for fresh faces, he said. Stakes are 100 minimum. I pulled out 500 in cash. Sounds perfect. The game was 7-card stud, high stakes, invitation only. 3 lawyers from California, a real estate developer from Phoenix, Travis, and me. Rachel wasn't invited to this table. She was still at the kiddie table, losing her shirt $20 at a time. But she could see us. More importantly, she could see me. I waited until the 3rd hand to let her notice. She was reaching for her purse when she glanced over and froze. Our eyes met across the smoky room, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, and pure terror. I smiled and waved. Rachel bolted for the bathroom. "Friend of yours?" Travis asked, dealing the next hand. "Never seen her before in my life." I said, and raised $50. For the next hour, I played the best poker of my life. Not because I was lucky, because I was angry. Every bet was calculated revenge. Every bluff was personal satisfaction. Every win was taking back what Travis had stolen from my family. By midnight, I'd won $800. Travis had lost $600, mostly to me. Rachel had disappeared entirely. Lucky night, Travis said, trying to keep his voice friendly as I stacked chips. Luck has nothing to do with it, I replied. It's about reading people. What's your read on me? I looked him straight in the eyes. You're a bottom feeder who targets desperate women because you're too weak to make it in the real world. The room went quiet. The lawyers from California suddenly found their cards fascinating. Travis's face hardened. You might want to be careful who you're talking to. Or what? You'll sick your girlfriend on me? The married one with the kid who doesn't know daddy's house money is paying for her midlife crisis. Travis stood up slowly. He was bigger than me, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Men like him were bullies until someone pushed back. I think you should leave, he said. I think you should give me my wife's money back. Dead silence. Even the slot machine seemed quieter. Your wife. I pulled out my phone and showed him Rachel's picture. Rachel Stevens. Ring any bells? Travis looked at the photo, then at me, then at the empty chair where Rachel had been sitting. His face went pale. She told me she was divorced. Funny, she told me you didn't exist. I stood up and gathered my winnings. $800 in chips, plus the moral satisfaction of watching Travis's world crumble in real time. Here's what's going to happen, I said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. You're going to stay away from my wife. You're going to delete her number from your phone. And you're going to find a new line of work that doesn't involve stealing from families. And if I don't, I leaned close enough to smell the desperation on his breath. Then I'll make your life very interesting. Insurance investigators have friends in all sorts of places. IRS, FBI, Nevada Gaming Commission. Amazing how many laws get broken when you start looking closely. Travis sat back down, deflated. The other players gathered their chips and headed for the door, sensing the party was over. I cashed out my winnings and walked toward the exit. At the door, I turned back. Tell Rachel her husband says hello, and that Molly misses her. Then I left Lucky 7 and drove back to my motel, feeling satisfied for the first time in months. But the night wasn't over. Rachel was waiting in my motel parking lot, leaning against her Honda like a rejected prom date. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smeared, her red dress wrinkled. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. Neil, please, let me explain. I unlocked my motel room door. Fine. Explain. She followed me inside, and for a moment we just stared at each other. 14 years of marriage reduced to a cheap Vegas motel room that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. How did you find me? She asked. Credit card statements, email accounts, basic investigative work. You're not as clever as you think. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed, looking small and lost. It's not what you think. Really? Because I think you've been lying to me for months, stealing our money and planning to run away with some two-bit con artist. Travis isn't a con artist. He's got files on 6 other married women. Same pattern, same scam. You're just the latest mark. Rachel's face crumpled. That's not true. I pulled out my phone and showed her photos of Travis's filing cabinet. Her file, along with all the others. Bank records, personal information, detailed notes about emotional weaknesses and financial assets. He's been playing you from day one, I said. The romance, the poker lessons, the talk about a new life. It's all scripted. You're not special, Rachel. You're just profitable. She stared at the photos, and I watched her fairy tale collapse in real time. But he loves me, she whispered. He loves your credit limit. Rachel started crying. Deep, body-shaking sobs that might have broken my heart 6 months ago. Now, they just made me tired. I never meant for this to happen, she said. What did you mean to happen? I don't know. I just felt so trapped. Every day the same routine, the same conversations, the same boring life. Travis made me feel alive again. And Molly? What about her? She'd understand eventually. Understand what? That mommy abandoned her for a Vegas loser? I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was trying to make enough money to start over. I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. You were trying to gamble your way to happiness. How'd that work out? Rachel wiped her eyes, smearing mascara across her cheeks. So what happens now? Now you pack your stuff, fly home, and we figure out how to explain to our daughter why mommy tried to run away with a stranger. What about us? I looked at this woman who'd shared my bed for 14 years, who'd given birth to my child, who'd promised to love and honor me until death do us part. She looked like Rachel, sounded like Rachel, but she was someone else entirely. There is no us, I said. You ended us the first time you lied. Neil, please, we can work this out. No, we can't. Some things can't be fixed. Rachel stood up, smoothing her wrinkled dress. What about Molly? What about her? Custody, visitation. She's my daughter, too. Your daughter who you were planning to uproot for a Vegas fantasy. The kid you left alone while you played poker with strangers? That daughter? I made mistakes, but I'm still her mother. Being a mother requires being present. You've been checked out for months. Rachel moved toward the door, then stopped. I do love you, Neil. I know you don't believe me, but I do. Love isn't a feeling, Rachel. It's a choice, and you chose Travis. She left without another word. I sat on the motel bed for a long time, staring at the door, waiting to feel something other than relief. But relief was all I had. The marriage was over, but at least the lying was too. I flew home the next morning and picked up Molly from my sister's house. How was your weekend with Aunt Kate? I asked on the drive home. Fun. We made pancakes and watched movies. Where's Mom? She's still in Portland. She'll be home tomorrow? Molly was quiet for a while, staring out the window at the familiar New England landscape. Then she said, Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? Kids always know. Even when adults think they're hiding it, kids can sense when the foundation starts cracking. Why would you ask that? Because you look sad all the time, and Mom acts like she doesn't want to be here. I pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. Our house looked smaller somehow, like it was shrinking around the edges. Molly, sometimes adults make mistakes. Big mistakes that hurt the people they love. Did Mom make a mistake? Yeah, she did. Are we going to be okay? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. 11 years old, smart as a whip, worried about things no kid should have to worry about. She deserved better than parents who couldn't figure out how to be happy. We're going to be fine, I said. You and me, we're going to be just fine. And for the first time in months, I meant it. Rachel came home Monday night with a story about Aunt Linda's miraculous recovery and a suitcase full of lies. She acted like nothing had happened, like Vegas was just a bad dream we'd both forget about. But I had photos, bank records, documentation of every lie, every betrayal, every dollar she'd stolen from our family. I'd built a case like I was preparing for trial. Because I was. Tuesday morning, I called the best divorce lawyer in town. I need to move fast, I told him. My wife is planning to run away with another man, and she's already stolen $18,000 from our accounts. Do you have proof? I handed him a folder thick with evidence. Photos, emails, financial records, everything I'd collected over the past month. He whistled low as he flipped through it. This is thorough. Very thorough. I'm good at my job. What do you want? Full custody of my daughter, the house. And I want her to know that actions have consequences. Revenge isn't really what the family court system is designed for. Then let's call it justice. The papers were served Thursday afternoon while Rachel was at work. She came home in a rage, waving the divorce petition like it was on fire. You can't do this, she screamed. You can't just throw away 14 years. I didn't throw anything away, you did. This is about Vegas, isn't it? You followed me. This is about lying. This is about stealing. This is about planning to abandon your daughter for some loser with a gambling problem. Molly was at soccer practice, so we could fight without an audience. Rachel paced around our living room like a caged animal, furious and desperate. I never said I was leaving Molly. You never said you weren't. Travis loves her. He wants to be her father. Travis wants to adopt her so you can't change your mind and come home. It's called leverage. Rachel stopped pacing. How do you know that? I pulled out my phone and showed her the emails I'd found on Travis's laptop. Messages discussing adoption procedures, legal guardianship, ways to make Rachel's departure permanent. He's been planning this longer than you have, I said. You're not his partner, Rachel. You're his exit strategy. She read the emails twice, her face going pale. Then she sat down hard on our couch, the same couch where we'd watched movies and planned vacations and talked about growing old together. He said he loved me, she whispered. He loves your money. The rest is just packaging. Rachel looked around our living room like she was seeing it for the first time. Family photos on the walls, Molly's art projects on the refrigerator, 14 years of shared life documented in furniture and memories. "What have I done?" she asked. "You chose someone else. Now, live with it." The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and mediations and financial depositions. Rachel tried to contest the divorce, claiming temporary insanity, midlife crisis, anything that might explain away her behavior. But evidence doesn't lie. Numbers don't have feelings. The $18,000 was gone, spent on a fantasy that evaporated the moment I walked into Lucky 7. Travis tried calling her a few times, but Rachel had learned her lesson about trusting handsome strangers with silver tongues. She blocked his number and changed her locks, though it was too late for damage control. The damage was already done. Molly took the news better than expected. Kids are resilient when adults are honest with them. "So you and Mom aren't going to live together anymore?" she asked over breakfast one Saturday morning. "That's right, but you'll still see her every other weekend, and we'll both still love you exactly the same." "What about the house?" "This is still your home. That's not changing." Molly nodded seriously, processing this information like she was solving a math problem. "Dad, was Mom unhappy because of us?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. "No, sweetheart. Mom was unhappy because of Mom. Sometimes adults make bad choices that have nothing to do with their families." "Like Travis?" "Yeah, like Travis. He seemed nice on the phone." I froze with my coffee cup halfway to my lips. "You talked to Travis?" "Mom called him a few times when you were at work. He said he couldn't wait to meet me and that Vegas had great schools." My pulse spiked. Travis had been talking to my daughter without my knowledge, planning her future like she was a chess piece in his game. That's when I decided nice wasn't enough. That weekend, I drove back to Vegas. Lucky 7 was closed, permanently. A "for lease" sign hung in the window, and the parking lot was empty except for tumbleweeds and broken glass. But Travis was still around. I found him at a dive bar near the airport, drinking alone and looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. He saw me coming and tried to leave, but I blocked his path. "We need to talk," I said. "I got nothing to say to you." "Then listen." I sat down next to him at the bar, close enough that he couldn't run without making a scene. "You talk to my daughter," I said. Travis's face went pale. "That was Rachel's idea." "I don't care whose idea it was. You involved a child in your scam." "It wasn't a scam. I cared about Rachel." "You cared about her bank account. There's a difference." The bartender was watching us nervously, probably trying to decide if he should call security. I kept my voice calm and friendly, like we were old friends catching up. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to disappear. New city, new name, new life. And you're never going to contact my family again." "Or what?" I pulled out my phone and showed him photos I'd taken of his apartment, his filing cabinet, his detailed records on vulnerable women. "Or I send these to the Nevada Gaming Commission, the FBI, and every major news outlet in Vegas. Romance scammer targets married women, destroys families, keeps detailed files on victims, makes great television." Travis stared at the photos, and I watched his last bit of confidence drain away. "Those women came to me," he said weakly. "Doesn't matter. Fraud is fraud, and documentation is evidence. How do you think your other marks would feel, knowing you kept their personal information like trophies?" He ordered another drink with shaking hands. "What do you want?" "I want you gone, tonight. And I want a written statement admitting you targeted my wife specifically because she was married and financially stable." "I'm not signing anything." I stood up and dropped a 20 on the bar. "Then I'll see you on the evening news." I was halfway to the door when he called after me. "Wait." I turned around. Travis was digging through his wallet, looking desperate. "I've got maybe $300 left. Rachel cleaned me out worse than I cleaned her out." Poetic justice. "I can't leave Vegas with $300. "Not my problem." "Come on, man. I made mistakes, but I'm not evil. I really did care about her." I walked back to the bar and leaned close enough to smell the whiskey on his breath. "You plan to adopt my daughter," I said quietly. "You discussed it in emails like she was property. That's not caring, Travis. That's sociopathy." His shoulders sagged. "I never meant for it to go that far. But it did. And now you're going to pay for it." I pulled out a legal pad and pen from my jacket pocket. "Write it down. All of it. How you targeted Rachel, how you researched her finances, how you plan to take custody of Molly. Make it detailed. And if I do this, you'll leave me alone? If you do this and disappear forever, I'll consider us even. Travis spent 20 minutes writing his confession. 2 pages of handwritten admission that he deliberately targeted my wife, stolen our money, and planned to break up our family for financial gain. When he finished, I read it over twice, then folded it and put it in my pocket. There's a Greyhound station 6 blocks from here, I said. I suggest you catch the next bus to anywhere that isn't Nevada. What about my stuff? What about it? I left him at the bar with his empty glass and his empty future and drove back to the airport feeling like I'd finally closed the case. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Rachel got supervised visitation every other weekend and a strict order to pay back the $18,000 she'd stolen. She also got a criminal record for credit card fraud, which made finding new employment challenging. Travis's written confession helped convince the judge that Rachel had been manipulated, which probably saved her from jail time, but it didn't save her from consequences. She moved into a studio apartment across town and took a job waiting tables at a chain restaurant. No more designer clothes, no more Vegas weekends, no more fairy tale romance with handsome strangers. Just reality, which turned out to be much harsher than she'd expected. "Do you hate me?" she asked during one of her supervised visits with Molly. We were sitting in my kitchen while Molly played in the backyard, close enough to supervise but far enough for honest conversation. "No," I said. "Hate takes too much energy." "Do you forgive me?" "I'm working on it." Rachel nodded and stared out the window at our daughter, who was building an elaborate fairy house out of sticks and leaves. "She's happy," Rachel observed. "Yeah, kids bounce back when adults stop making their lives chaotic." "Is that what I did? Made her life chaotic?" I could have been cruel. Could have listed all the ways Rachel's choices had hurt Molly, the lies, the absences, the uncertainty, the fear of abandonment, but cruelty wouldn't change anything. "You made choices," I said. "Now we all live with them. I wish I could take it back. But you can't. So focus on what you can do moving forward." Rachel finished her coffee and gathered her purse. "Neil, for what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for all of it." "I know you are. Do you think we could ever?" She trailed off, but I knew what she was asking. "No," I said gently. "Some things break too completely to fix." She nodded and kissed Molly goodbye, promising to see her next weekend. After she left, Molly came inside with dirt under her fingernails and questions in her eyes. "Is Mom sad?" she asked. "Yeah, she's sad." "Because of the divorce?" "Because of the choices she made that led to the divorce." Molly considered this while washing her hands at the kitchen sink. "Dad, do you think she'll be okay?" "Eventually. Your mom's tougher than she looks." "Are we okay?" I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. 11 years old, resilient as steel, building fairy houses in the backyard while her parents' marriage crumbled around her. She was going to be fine. Better than fine. "We're perfect," I said, and meant it. 6 months later, I got a call from Dave Martinez. "Remember Travis Kellerman?" he asked. Hard to forget. He got arrested in Phoenix. Same scam, different city. Apparently, he didn't learn his lesson. Good. Maybe prison will teach him what I couldn't. There's more. The Phoenix PD wants copies of your evidence. Seems like Travis has been running this con for years, and you've got the best documentation they've ever seen. I mailed them everything. Photos, emails, Travis's handwritten confession, financial records. 6 months later, Travis pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud and got 3 years in state prison. Justice served, case closed. But the best revenge wasn't sending Travis to jail. It wasn't even divorcing Rachel or keeping the house. The best revenge was the life I built afterward. Molly and I fell into new routines. Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon movies, weeknight homework sessions at the kitchen table. Simple stuff that felt revolutionary after months of lies and drama. I started dating again eventually. A teacher from Molly's school who liked quiet evenings and honest conversation. Sarah was everything Rachel wasn't. Stable, reliable, content with ordinary happiness. "She's nice," Molly said after meeting Sarah for the first time. "She doesn't act like she's performing in a play. Smart kid, gets it from me." Rachel tried to cause problems a few times. Late child support payments, missed visitations, attempts to modify custody arrangements. But documented evidence of her Vegas adventure made those challenges short-lived. The truth, properly recorded and legally filed, has a way of winning arguments. 2 years after the divorce, Rachel called on a Tuesday night. "Neil, it's me." like I wouldn't recognize the voice of someone who'd shared my bed for 14 years. What do you need, Rachel? I wanted you to know I'm moving to Florida. My sister offered me a job, and I think it's time for a fresh start. What about Molly? She can visit during school vacations, if that's okay with you. I looked across the living room at my daughter, who was sprawled on the couch doing algebra homework with the focused intensity of someone solving world peace. It's her choice, I said, but she's settled here, happy, stable. I know, and I know I don't have any right to ask, but will you tell her I love her? You can tell her yourself when you call to say goodbye. She won't take my calls anymore. I wasn't surprised. Molly had reached her own conclusions about reliability and promises and people who disappear when life gets complicated. Give her time, I said. How much time? However much she needs. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. I really did love you, Neil. Both of you. I know. Do you think she'll forgive me someday? Maybe. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, though. What does that mean? It means love has to be earned back, day by day, choice by choice. You can't gamble your way to redemption. After Rachel hung up, I sat in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. No more lies to untangle. No more evidence to gather. No more mysteries to solve. Just a normal Tuesday evening with my daughter, who looked up from her homework long enough to ask who was on the phone. Your mother. She's moving to Florida. Molly nodded and went back to her algebra like this was the most natural thing in the world. Maybe for her, it was. Dad? She said without looking up from her textbook. Yeah. I'm glad it's just us. Me too, kiddo. Me too. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote the final report on the case of Rachel versus reality, not for any court or insurance company, but for myself. Documentation of how a marriage died, how a family survived, and how the truth, properly presented, always wins in the end. Some stories don't have happy endings. They just have honest ones. Rachel moved to Florida and sent postcards for a while, generic beach scenes with messages like, thinking of you and miss you both. Molly read them politely and put them in a shoebox without comment. Travis got out of prison after 18 months and violated his parole within a week. Last I heard, he was back inside, probably running poker games in the yard and planning his next big score. Some people never learn, but some people do. I learned that marriage is a partnership, not a performance. That trust, once broken, can't be repaired with apologies and promises. That love without honesty is just elaborate pretending. Most importantly, I learned that revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about building something better from the wreckage they leave behind. 5 years later, Sarah and I got married in our backyard with Molly as maid of honor and 20 close friends as witnesses. No Vegas chapel, no fairy tale dress, no dramatic vows about forever and always. Just two people who'd learned the value of ordinary happiness, promising to be honest with each other even when honesty hurts, especially when honesty hurts. Rachel sent a wedding gift, a crystal vase with a note that said, "Wishing you all the happiness I couldn't give you." I put the vase in our bedroom where it catches morning light and throws rainbows on the walls. Some might call that forgiveness. I call it moving on. The final confrontation came 3 years later at Molly's 8th grade graduation. Rachel showed up unannounced, sitting in the back row, wearing a dress that was too young for her and a smile that was too bright to be real. After the ceremony, she approached us in the parking lot. "She's beautiful," Rachel said, watching Molly pose for photos with her friends. "So grown up. Kids have a way of doing that," I replied. "Neil, I know I don't have any right to ask, but could I talk to her just for a minute?" I looked at Molly, who was laughing with her best friend about something only 8th graders find hilarious. She hadn't seen her mother in 2 years, hadn't returned phone calls or acknowledged birthday cards. "It's her choice," I said. Rachel walked over to where Molly was standing. I watched from a distance as she said something that made my daughter's smile fade. They talked for maybe 5 minutes, Rachel animated and pleading, Molly polite but distant. Then Molly shook her head, said something final, and walked away. Rachel stood alone in the parking lot for a long time after everyone else had left, staring at nothing, looking smaller somehow. "What did she want?" I asked Molly on the drive home. "To move back. Said she's learned from her mistakes and wants to be a real mother now. What did you tell her?" "I told her I already have a real family." Smart kid. Definitely gets it from me. That evening, Sarah made Molly's favorite dinner while I helped with thank you cards for graduation gifts. Normal family stuff that felt extraordinary after everything we'd been through. "Dad," Molly said while addressing envelopes, "do you think Mom will ever be happy?" "I think she'll be whatever she chooses to be, just like the rest of us." I used to worry about her. Used to? Now I figure she's an adult. She can take care of herself. I looked at my daughter, 14 years old, wise beyond her years, writing thank you notes in perfect cursive, and felt proud of the young woman she was becoming. No thanks to Rachel's chaos, no thanks to Travis's manipulation, thanks to her own strength, and maybe a little bit of mine. The phone rang later that night. Rachel's number on the caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. "Neil, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I wanted to say thank you for raising such an amazing daughter, for being the parent I couldn't be, for—" Her voice broke. "For being everything I wasn't." I deleted the message without playing it for Molly. Some conversations are better left private. The final chapter of our story happened 5 years later. Molly was 19, home from college for Christmas break, when she announced she'd been in touch with Rachel. "She found me on social media," Molly explained over breakfast. "We've been messaging." My first instinct was protective anger, the same feeling I'd had when I discovered the credit card statements all those years ago. But Molly was an adult now, capable of making her own choices about relationships and consequences. "How do you feel about that?" I asked. "Curious, mostly. She's working as a nurse in Tampa, says she's been sober for 3 years." "Sober from what?" "Everything, apparently. Gambling, drinking, bad decisions. She goes to meetings." I absorbed this information while refilling my coffee cup. People could change. I'd seen it happen. But they could also pretend to change while planning their next big score. "Are you planning to see her?" "Maybe. She invited me to visit during spring break. Do you want to visit her?" Molly was quiet for a moment, staring out the kitchen window at the snow-covered yard where she used to build fairy houses. "Part of me does," she said finally. "The part that still remembers bedtime stories and birthday parties before everything went wrong." "And the other part?" "The other part remembers being 11 years old and scared that my mom was never coming home. Both parts are valid." "I know, that's what makes it complicated." 2 months later, Molly flew to Tampa for a long weekend. Sarah and I worried like parents do when their children venture into potentially harmful situations, but we didn't try to stop her. Some lessons can only be learned through experience. Molly came home with mixed feelings and realistic expectations. "She's different," she told us over dinner. "Quieter, more apologetic, I guess, but also sadder." "How so?" "Like she knows what she lost and can't figure out how to live with it." "Did you have a good visit?" "It was fine. She showed me around the city, introduced me to her AA sponsor, took me to the hospital where she works. Everything very normal and carefully planned. But it felt like she was auditioning to be my mother instead of just being herself. Smart kid. Still gets it from me." "Will you see her again?" "Probably, but not because I want a relationship with her, because I want to understand what happened, for my own closure." And that, I realized, was the healthiest possible outcome. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but understanding. The ability to look at the past clearly and move forward without carrying someone else's mistakes. 2 weeks later, I was cleaning out old files when I found the folder of evidence from Rachel's Vegas adventure. Photos, emails, financial records, everything I'd used to build my case for divorce and custody. I stared at the documentation of my wife's betrayal and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no lingering hurt. Just recognition of something that had happened to different people in a different life. That evening, I built a fire in our backyard pit and fed the entire folder to the flames. Page by page, photo by photo, until there was nothing left but ash and smoke drifting up toward the stars. Sarah found me there an hour later, poking at the dying embers with a stick. "Burning evidence?" she asked, settling into the chair beside me. "Burning the past?" "Any particular reason?" "Spring cleaning?" She laughed and handed me a beer. "It's February. Emotional spring cleaning?" We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the last of the flames flicker out. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle echoed across the valley. Lonely, but purposeful. Heading somewhere better. "Do you ever regret it?" Sarah asked. "Fighting so hard for Molly, for the house, for all of it?" "No. Do you think I should?" I think you did what any good father would do. You protected your daughter and built her a stable life. Even the revenge part? Especially the revenge part. Some people need to learn that actions have consequences. I thought about Travis in his prison cell, Rachel in her Tampa apartment, and the choices that had led them both to smaller, lonelier lives than they'd planned. I used to think revenge was about making people pay for what they'd done, I said. Now, I think it's about making sure they can't do it again. Same result, different motivation. Better motivation. Sarah reached over and took my hand. For what it's worth, I'm glad you fought for this. For Molly, for yourself, for the life you wanted. Even though it wasn't pretty? Especially because it wasn't pretty. Pretty doesn't last. Real does. The fire had burned down to glowing coals, warm enough to feel but not bright enough to see by. Perfect metaphor for marriage, I thought. Not the flashy flames of new romance, but the steady heat of commitment. Ready to go inside? Sarah asked. In a minute. I wanted to sit there a little longer, in the quiet darkness of our backyard, listening to the sounds of a peaceful neighborhood. Dogs barking, televisions murmuring through windows, the distant hum of traffic on the highway. Normal sounds. Ordinary sounds. The sounds of a life worth fighting for. Inside, Molly was at the kitchen table working on a psychology paper about family dynamics and resilience. She looked up when we came in, snow melting off our coats. "What were you burning?" she asked. "Old files, insurance stuff." She nodded and went back to her paper. "Dad, can I ask you something? Always? Do you think people can really change, like fundamentally change who they are?" I thought about Rachel's messages from Tampa, Travis's repeated arrests, my own evolution from betrayed husband to protective father to content stepfather. I think people can change their behavior, I said finally. Whether they change who they are, that's harder to say. What's the difference? Behavior is what you do. Character is why you do it. You can learn new behaviors, but changing your character requires admitting your old character was flawed. And most people can't do that? Most people would rather blame circumstances than examine themselves. Molly highlighted something in her textbook. I'm writing about us, our family, the divorce, the aftermath, how we rebuilt. What's your thesis? That resilience isn't about avoiding trauma, it's about learning from it and using it to build something stronger. I looked at my daughter, 20 years old now, studying psychology, thinking deeply about human nature and family systems, and felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with academic achievement. She'd taken the worst thing that had ever happened to our family and turned it into wisdom. That's a good thesis, I said. I learned from the best. Your mother taught you resilience, too, in her own way. Molly looked up from her paper, surprised. How do you figure? She showed you what happens when people don't take responsibility for their choices. That's valuable information. Negative role modeling, the most effective kind sometimes. Molly smiled. The first time she'd smiled when discussing Rachel in years. You know what's funny? I used to hate her for leaving. Now I'm grateful. Grateful? If she hadn't left, I wouldn't have learned how strong I am. I wouldn't have this relationship with you and Sarah. I wouldn't understand the difference between people who say they love you and people who show up every day. That's very mature. I had good teachers. Later that night, after Sarah had gone to bed and Molly had finished her paper, I found myself alone in the kitchen, looking through old photo albums. Pictures of Rachel and me on our wedding day, young and hopeful and convinced we'd figured out the secret to happiness. Photos of baby Molly, toddler Molly, school-age Molly, with both parents beaming in the background. Evidence of a life that had seemed perfect from the outside. But perfection is just another kind of performance, and performances always end eventually. I closed the album and put it back on the shelf next to newer albums filled with pictures of our blended family. Sarah and me at our backyard wedding. The three of us on vacation in Maine. Molly's high school graduation with both her parents. Her real parents, the ones who'd shown up consistently for 17 years, flanking her in the photos. Different pictures, different story, same kid, stronger foundation. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, peaceful sounds that had taken years to appreciate fully. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but I recognized the writing style immediately. Neil, I know you probably won't respond, but I wanted you to know I saw Molly's psychology paper online. She submitted it to some undergraduate journal. I'm proud of her and grateful to you for raising such an incredible young woman. She's everything I hoped she'd become and nothing like who I was. That's the best gift you could have given her. Rachel. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Some conversations are finished even when the other person keeps talking. But before I went upstairs, I did one last thing. I opened my laptop and searched for Molly's published paper, Resilience and Reconstruction: How Families Rebuild After Betrayal. 20 pages of academic analysis about divorce, custody battles, and the long-term effects of parental choices on child development. Written with the objectivity of a researcher and the insight of someone who'd lived through the subject matter. The conclusion paragraph made me smile. While family dissolution is traumatic for children, it can also provide opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Children of divorce often develop enhanced emotional intelligence, stronger relationship skills, and clearer understanding of personal values. The key factor in positive outcomes is the presence of at least one stable, consistent parent who prioritizes the child's well-being over personal grievances. In such cases, divorce can be less about family destruction and more about family evolution. Academic language for a simple truth: sometimes losing the wrong people makes room for the right ones. I closed the laptop and headed upstairs, passing Molly's room where light still showed under her door, probably reading or video chatting with college friends or planning her next psychology project. Normal 20-year-old activities in a normal, stable home. The best revenge against chaos is building something peaceful in its place. Sarah was already asleep when I got to our bedroom, her breathing deep and even. I slipped into bed beside her and stared at the ceiling, thinking about the long journey from that first credit card statement to this quiet moment. 7 years of legal battles, custody arrangements, financial rebuilding, and emotional reconstruction. 7 years of proving that some things are worth fighting for and some fights are worth winning. Tomorrow there would be new challenges. Molly would graduate college and start her own life. Sarah and I would navigate the complexities of an empty nest. Rachel would continue her own journey toward redemption or self-destruction, depending on choices I couldn't control. But tonight, in this house we'd built together on the foundation of honest love and daily commitment, everything was exactly as it should be. I closed my eyes and fell asleep to the sound of my family's quiet breathing, dreaming of fairy houses and pancakes and all the ordinary miracles that make life worth living.